Hello, I'm Bert Oliver, and welcome to Bowie News and Views. And I used to say we have a special guest, and today we really do have a special guest, someone I've known for a very long time. I think we're going to get a lot of enjoyment out of this program. And Audrey Scott, welcome.
Thank you, Bert. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I really am looking forward to a good conversation.
Thanks. And I might say up front, Audrey is the chairman of the Maryland Republican Party, fairly new in the business, that particular, always been a champion, I think, of the Maryland Republican Party. But
I
now
have
we're
been.
going to talk to you about what's going on in your world now.
Well, the chairman of the state Republican Party actually is a 4-year term, and our previous chairman resigned after 3 years. So there was a 1 year remaining in his term. So I am fulfilling that 1 year unexpired term. And it began in November, and it will end next November.
Oh, I see. Well, that's why you're so busy.
A little bit. I really am challenged by the opportunities, obviously, with his resignation, and it really came after several years of controversy. And so we're rebuilding. And there's a lot of excitement, and I think that everyone understands and realizes that the momentum that started in Virginia and moved to New Jersey and also Pennsylvania and then to Massachusetts with Scott Brown, that momentum has just energized Republicans and independents and even some disillusioned Democrats.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that too. And I thought, well, Audrey, I said, gosh, Audrey's going to have a real challenge on the hand, as you mentioned, and a lot of hard work. But it was so great to see some of the mood of people when I talked to them about what has occurred. And there's a sentiment probably that's real about concerns about the future of the country. And when we put all politics are local on what you'll see on the screen, then that means, in my opinion, that everything has to be positive and directed, and your resources on the local scene. And yet we in this area, I might mention, and when I talk to my friends and neighbors, we talk about national politics so often. So when that term, all politics start locally, it's hard for people to even think local. And so what are the first challenges you're facing now to do what I think Audrey Scott usually does, to get things done?
You mentioned how you talk to your neighbors and friends and you talk national issues, and that's because we're so close to Washington. We're part of the metropolitan Washington area. Our newspaper covers the national scene much more than if you go to California, you go to Florida, you even go to Massachusetts. The headlines aren't as oriented toward the national arena as ours are here. And so our exposure to Washington gives us a different perspective. However, I think you're absolutely correct that all politics are local. And what that means is that the decisions that are made at other levels of government, especially at the federal level and at the state level, affect us in our daily living. They affect us in our pocketbooks. And that's what's happened in the last several years. So my job, I have particular responsibilities. It's not legislative, that's for the legislators. It's not policy, that's for the legislators. My job is really to grow the party, to raise money. I dial for dollars, and to elect Republicans. And I think that is probably the most major responsibility I have, because here in Maryland, not only at the state level, but our representation in Congress is one party. And we don't have a two-party system. And when you don't have a two-party system, you don't have checks and balances. And when you don't have checks and balances, it doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. You aren't getting the best government. People, citizens deserve a government that has an opportunity to consider all sides, all viewpoints, and the art of compromise is really the best government that we can have. And we don't have that in Maryland. We have a monopoly, and when you have monopolies, you get abuses. And we have abusive runaway spending. abusive runaway taxes, and it's just gotten to be where people are saying enough because they're feeling it in their pocketbook every day, and the economy is so bad, and it's just getting, not improving, it's getting worse every day, and people are in pain. People are losing their jobs. If you haven't lost your job or been laid off or been furloughed, then you're a rare bird. Or you know someone in your family, in your neighborhood, a relative somewhere that is in that situation.
No, you're absolutely right, Audrey. And this is the thing that when we're talking about being so close to Washington, I really don't think people really think much about locally because they think a lot because of the current charge to spending in the Washington bases, downtown, I call it. A lot of people are getting greatly concerned, probably too, that ordinarily because we've been fortunate in our area for a long, long time. We're usually the last hit on low employment and high percentages, and we went from 5% or 4%, which I consider almost full employment, to 10% in such a short period of time. And you're right, Audrey, and what a lot of people don't realize is that percentage there of 10% may be going greater, and then, of course, the people that have run out of benefits and those that have just simply given up. And a lot of people are working part-time to make ends meet, and it's affecting us more here than people realize because of when we're seeing these high percentages in Michigan, and a lot of people don't think that 17% is a possibility, but 17% is more likely the real figure, what I've researched. And the sad part about it is when we've got this high unemployment, and families are interstate families. So if it affects one state with a high percentage higher than ours, it could be affecting our family, relatives, and so forth. So we hear about what's getting done. And I agree with you, and I've always been concerned about the state of Maryland as being one of the highest cost of living states, and having a keen concern about economic development, which is job development, and jobs come, many times workforce development is the key to getting good economic development. And we've always had an attractive workforce in Maryland to some degree, and maybe we've capitalized on that a great deal. But the basics that seem to start in our hometown and in our state is not to be ignored because of all of this attention that a lot of people give to the national level, because we're in bad shape in the state of Maryland, as you mentioned. And the sad part about it, I've never seen this area affected as much for foreclosed homes. This area, not right next to Washington, D.C., there's two on the street I live on, two. And the houses behind me on the next street is two, backdoor neighbors.
It's just...
And when you see that, every day you look out in the backyard and put your dog out, or every time you get in the car out front and roll by the ones being run by, it is right in your neighborhood. And this has got to change. And I know that there's so much that they're on the legislative level, and you think is going to be a solution to these things. But the greatest thing that I hope through your efforts and the people that are maybe considering some change in their voting pattern may change that to the point that those people would feel directly accountable if they know there's a chance that although the percentages are 2-to-1 in Democratic versus Republican state, it's not going to be as predictable on the outcome in voting. So I think you're on the right track, but I just want to also mention the fact that a lot of people in our assembly should be aware of how people have been affected.
Well, I think you're right, and the 2-to-1 registration obviously is something that's a huge hurdle, but it certainly didn't make a difference in Massachusetts, and their registration is similar to ours.